So let's go on and define the view side of things. We'll go back to our dashboard. One final thing we have to do is we need to connect to our user client. So what we're going to do is we are going to use the controller to glue together the data and the view. No, we're going to do that in a minute. Forget that for a second. We're going to go and do the view first. So I happen to have, if we go to dashboard fxml, what I've done is I've included 3 other bits of fxml. I could have defined all of the view in this one file, but I'm kind of a freak for like separating stuff out. So I wanted to separate out our 3 different things into 3 different files. So I have mood fxml, happy fxml. The one we care about is our leaderboard fxml. Okay? So this is going to be, so it's a V-box, so it's a vertically aligned box. This is our square that we're going to draw our leaderboard in. And what we do is we say, for this view, because remember our fxml is the view side of things, this is the controller to associate with this view. So I can have a look at this controller, and the controller's really, it's really quite dumb. What it says is, I'm going to have a table view, because I expect my leaderboard to be some sort of tabular data. I'm going to have this defined in an fxml file. And then what I'm going to do, when you were asking about how the items gets drawn on the UI, that items observable list that we just updated, we set that as the items on this table view. That's just gluing them together. That's all we have to do, just glue them together like that. So let's define our table view. This is going to be a table view. And we give it an ID. IntelliJ's worked out that because we have a table view in our controller called leaders, that probably we want to call this, give this the ID of leaders so that we can glue those 2 things together. What else do we need to do? We need to tell it which columns are in our table view. So our first column, this is where we're going to have a cheat. I couldn't be bothered to type all of that stuff, so I created that as a live template. But although this is a cheat, you can see how this is a live template I might want to reuse again and again in real life, not just for the demo. Okay, so table column is a table column, it has some text for the header, it has some width, and then I have to define the cell value factory, which is the thing which it will, is the bit of code it's going to listen to find out what value to draw in that cell. And I'll show you how those things work. So my text, this is going to be Twitter handle. So this is going to be a property, which I'll show you in a sec, Twitter handle. My width of this is going to be 300, because I've done this demo before, and I know it's 300. And remember that if we go into our leaderboard controller, our table view is of Twitter users. Okay, and these are the same Twitter users that we had in our map. These are the same Twitter users that we have in our items list. So yes, so I have Twitter users, and this has properties in it. It has a simple string property and a simple integer property, and these are JavaFX types. And when I change something in a simple string property, the UI will update itself to reflect that change. So if I happen to have a Twitter user and it's got my name, for example, Trisha G, and I'm going to update the tweets, value. When I see my name more than once, I'll increment this, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When that gets changed to 5, the UI will react to that by redrawing my cell to say 5. Okay, so I use these properties to tie together the data, the model, and the view. When I change this value, the view will change eventually in time when it's ready. Okay, and I define where this is going to go on the screen here. So I'm using the property Twitter handle. I want, in this column, which is going to be Twitter handle, I want you to use the property Twitter handle in that cell. Okay? It's just basically glue. I'm telling it where to find that data, and then JavaFX draws it magically. I'm going to do the same thing with the count, because remember, we've got 2 columns. We have the Twitter handle and the number of times we've seen them. So we have another one. This one is going to be count. This happens to be tweets. So let's look back at our Twitter user. That's this property tweets. Okay? So I'm saying in that table, I want you to draw me the Twitter handles on the left-hand side and the tweets on the right-hand side.
So is this just using bean semantics?
Yes.
Because it's a private, but you don't have a...
I've got getters and setters. You need 2 different magic getters and setters as well. So, these are actually unused, but they're not unused. So when IntelliJ puts it in grey, it means this getter isn't used. So, but in actual fact, JavaFX is going to use these getters to get the values.
Right, so it's not, even though there is a get tweets, it's not going to go to the get tweets, but it's going to go to the tweets property.
You end up having 2 getters, which I found a bit frustrating actually. You end up having 2 getters. One will get you the actual value. So these properties, they're wrappers. So we have a simple string property and a simple integer property. If I want to get the actual tweet value, which is an integer, I have to do this thing here, tweets. Tweets.get will give me the int value, the actual value. But JavaFX wants the property, the full property. So I have to have a get tweets, and I have to have tweets property. And there's convention around those namings too.
Okay, so the tweets property is the one that XML is binding to.
Yes, but get tweets is the thing that I'm probably going to want to use if I ever want to have a look at what that value is, or if I want to set that value. So for example, remember when we see our Twitter user again, we called this method increment count. Well, this is where we do all the logic of setting the value, that property value of the new value. Does that make sense? We just use a lot of convention to wire these things up. So let's go back to the dashboard because we've got one last thing to do and then everything's glued in. So the last thing we need to do is what we've done is we've created our leaderboard data, which was our model. We've created our leaderboard fxml, which is our view. We saw that we have a leaderboard controller, which was kind of a bit dumb. All it does is glue the data to the view. Now the last thing we need to do is pass that data into the controller. And we're just going to do that here. So we are able to get hold of the controllers, which have been defined for use in the fxml, by using this loader here, which loads the fxml. I can get these different controllers. Again, it's just a convention. But what I want to do is I need to get the leaderboard controller, and I need to pass it the leaderboard data that we just created. And then everything will be glued together. The data is listening to the client endpoint. The view knows how to draw itself and which fields on that data to use. And now the controller knows how to give the data to the view. And now, in theory, when we run it, we should see our leaderboard, assuming that our stub service is actually running correctly. Awesome. So this proves 2 things. One, we created the right JavaFX XML and wired it all in correctly. But this finally shows us that our stub service is emitting the right test Twitter handles. Otherwise, we wouldn't get them on the UI. We can actually see, if we look carefully, we can see there's 2 types of changes which happen to this leaderboard. One, if a user overtakes another user, then it reorders the values. Okay, so it has to redraw the whole list to reorder those values. But 2, if one of these Twitter handles, if this, yeah, you just saw that, that was quite handy. If this increments, it just redraws just that cell with the new value, which was set on that simple integer property. It just redraws just that cell. So there's 2 different types of redraw that's happening. I haven't got the height right somehow, so that's not quite right. Oh, I didn't put the height on at all, that's why. So let's just change that. I need to put a pref height of 1,000. Okay, so that's better. So now we can see every new Twitter handle that we see gets added to the leaderboard, and if the count changes, it gets incremented in there. One last thing we want to do with this is, I think the font size is not super useful, so I'm going to use CSS to change the font size to something a bit more useful. So this is just like the final touch. So let's look at, I have a dashboard CSS. I have a massive cheat to do, no? There we go. So this is where we have JavaFX specific CSS. That's not very useful. CSS properties. So I have, for table view, I want you to set the font size to 20. Okay? And then if I apply that and restart my dashboard, we should get a bigger font size. Whoa, that's like massive. But yeah, okay. That clearly works on the Windows machine and not so much on the Mac. But you get the idea, hopefully, that you can use CSS to style this really super easily. Okay? So we have created our leaderboard, our live updating leaderboard of values which come from attaching to a WebSocket, attaching via WebSockets to an end service that could potentially be running on a completely different machine. Are there any questions about what we've done around this side of stuff?
If I want to run this on my laptop, right?
Yeah.
Which folder do I go into? In the Sense folder, master, and I just.
What you want to do is, okay, so let me show you what you want to do in order to run this. You want to go into user test data and run this, because it's got a main method, so you should be able to run this. So run that, and then you should be able to go into dashboard. Are you using the master branch? Yeah, so make sure that if you're in the master branch, make sure you get rid of the stuff about mood chart data, because that's not going to work because we haven't done that. Okay, but the rest of it, you should just be able to run dashboard, and then you should get the, is that right? Yeah, you should get the dashboard up and running with just the leaderboard in there.